The case we will look at today has caused a major public protest, raising once again the fundamental questions that the judicial system must address. Who was the hero of this story? A cruel criminal who manipulated people, or an innocent person framed by a bloodthirsty murderer? Emmy Michelle Kitchen was born on December 2, 1977 in Tarrant County, Texas, USA. She was the youngest of the children in her family, with an older brother named Mark. Being the only girl, Emmy was spoiled, as often happens in families, and had close relationships with both of her parents and her brother. She was described as a real little princess, social, responsible, and very cheerful. In 1996, she graduated from high school and decided to attend university to study medicine. Her love for helping people evolved into a desire to become a doctor and eventually start her practice. The university she chose was located in Denton, so she moved closer to it. However, everything changed unexpectedly when she met a young man named James Masida. They met at a party organized by mutual friends, hit off immediately, and started dating. James, born in 1973, had Mexican roots. He had lived in Mexico with his family for many years before finishing school and moving to the USA. When meeting Emmy, he was a very quiet young man. James was successful in his work. After finishing high school, he went into business and opened a mortgage agency. He was very close to his family and loved spending time with his nephews, playing video games and attending football games with them. At first look, Emmy and James seemed like opposites, but they felt an immediate connection and decided to try a relationship. The two quickly became inseparable, spending all their free time together. Their families noticed how well they got along and how harmonious they were as a couple. By 1998, James's business had become so successful that he was able to buy a house north of Dallas. 2 years after they met, the young couple moved into this new home, but they hadn't gotten married yet. Emmy dreamed of a big wedding. After that, she wanted to start a family and raise children while James continued with his business. James was a very time-conscious person. He valued and took care of it. He owned expensive wristwatches, which he wore constantly. Time was an essential resource for him, and he organized his activities around a strict schedule. However, everything changed unexpectedly when James hired his cousin, a young man named Ivan Cantu, who was going through a rough period. Ivan was struggling with finances and housing, so James decided to bring him into his mortgage agency in Dallas. In addition, James allowed him to temporarily move into his house. Ivan was 26 years old at the time. He was born on June 14, 1973 in Dallas and had a privileged childhood with caring parents. He attended the best schools, but after graduating, he wasn't interested in further studies. Instead, Ivan wanted to secure a prestigious job and enjoy a high standard of living. At 20, he worked as an assistant and traveled with a musical group across the country, performing concerts and earning a good income. He spent several years living this way until he got tired of it. Though he had the potential to succeed in this field, Ivan decided to pursue a career in real estate. It turned out to be a wise decision, as he quickly started earning six-figure salaries. With his savings, he became wealthy at a young age and could afford whatever he wanted. Ivan became a mortgage broker, married for the second time, and lived in a large, luxurious house with his wife. They had the typical lifestyle of wealthy Americans, buying expensive cars and enjoying the good life. But this lifestyle slowly corrupted Ivan, and he got involved in alcohol and drugs. His second wife later admitted that Ivan became unpredictable and aggressive during this period. He developed ties to the criminal world, and his wife suspected him of being involved in drug dealing. Eventually, their marriage ended, and Ivan lost his job. His situation became even worse due to his addiction, and after the divorce, he lost a significant part of his wealth. He couldn't meet his needs, so he joined the military in an attempt to turn his life around. Unfortunately, his time in the army was far from the idealized version he had imagined, and after returning, he began working with his cousin James. At first, everything went well. Ivan and James got along like brothers, just as they had in their younger years. However, after a few months, tension began to grow between them. In 2000, for reasons that remain unclear, James kicked Ivan out of his house and fired him from the business. The rumors said that the cause was Ivan's criminal connections. Despite these problems, life seemed to continue as usual for Emmy and James. They got engaged, and James gave Emmy a beautiful diamond ring. They were preparing for their wedding and planned a romantic trip to the Bahamas. On November 3rd, 2000, the engaged couple went out to dinner with Emmy's father. They discussed their future plans, children, and career goals. They had a pleasant evening, unaware that it would be their last dinner together. Around 10:30 p.m., they all went home, feeling happy and looking forward to their next meeting. However, later that night, Emmy contacted her mother and mentioned that she had an important meeting the next day. But Emmy never showed up at the scheduled time. Her mother tried to reach her multiple times but was not able to get any response. This was very unusual, as Emmy typically called back. Hours passed, and by then her mother grew increasingly worried. Neither Emmy or James was answering their phones, and their families grew increasingly anxious, fearing something might have happened to them. James was unreachable, and everyone came to the conclusion that something was wrong. Worried parents went to the house where their children lived. They knocked on the door, but no one responded. James's car was parked in its usual spot, so, at the very least, the guy should have been home. After this, the girl's mother called emergency services. It was around 5:30 p.m. Several police officers arrived at the scene to break down the door and enter the house. The worst fears of the relatives were confirmed. They found the young couple in the bedroom. James was lying on the bed, face up, and his fiancée was face down on the floor. Both had sustained gunshot wounds that turned out to be fatal. The police confirmed that the couple had been dead for quite some time. There was no point in trying to save them. They were dead. The police called for reinforcements. Investigators noticed the door had been forced open, though it was unclear whether this had been done by the victims or the police. According to the relatives, they hadn't noticed anything suspicious before the police arrived, except that the girl's black Chevrolet Corvette was missing. It was also found that expensive watches and a ring given to the fiancé were missing. The relatives had no idea who could have hated the couple so much that they would kill both of them. The victims were shot at close range, leaving no chance for survival. They had never been involved in criminal circles and didn't suffer from any harmful addictions. Both were decent people focused on family and career, and they didn't appear to have any enemies. One of the detectives believed the killer was likely from the couple's inner circle, someone who knew them, possibly someone who envied them and had access to their home, or was let in by the homeowners. The motive for the murder could have been money or old grievances. The couple had likely had a conflict with someone shortly before the tragedy. At the same time, a robbery seemed possible too, as several expensive items worth thousands of dollars had disappeared. It's also possible the killer came to take revenge and grabbed the valuables along the way. The investigation focuses on their close circle. Autopsies revealed that James had been shot once, directly in the head, causing instant death. 4 bullets were found in Amy's body, suggesting that she had tried to escape after the first shot but was shot dead on the floor near the bed. The detectives' hypotheses were confirmed. The gunshot wounds caused the deaths of both young people. Unfortunately, no murder weapon was found at the crime scene, and there were no clear suspects at that point. The young couple didn't have a history of conflict unless you count a suspicious incident involving the firing of the cousin Ivan. Ivan's mother, Sylvia, contacted the police several hours after hearing about the deaths of her cousin and his fiancée. She reported that when she arrived at her son's apartment, no one answered the door, and she couldn't reach him. She became especially worried when she noticed a hole in the wall of his apartment that appeared to be caused by a bullet. She knew he had been traveling with his girlfriend to visit her parents in Arkansas, which made her fearful that he might have met the same fate as the young couple. Detectives arrived at the scene and discovered Amy Kitchen's car in the parking lot of the complex, which automatically made Ivan a suspect in the double murder. A search warrant was obtained for his apartment, where investigators found a set of keys, clothes, shoes, and socks in the kitchen trash that could have been used during the murder, with clear bloodstains on them. They also found a box of ammunition in the apartment. Meanwhile, Ivan was in Arkansas, and Sylvia finally managed to contact him. She feared something had happened to him. Ivan told his mother about an incident on November 2nd, when a man in a pizza delivery uniform came to his door with an order Ivan hadn't placed. Ivan felt something was wrong and didn't open the door, leaving it on the chain. The man turned out to be from the criminal world, demanding payment of a debt related to illegal substances Ivan had allegedly bought. A dispute followed, and the man threatened more drastic measures if the debt wasn't paid. On November 7th, the man returned and fired a shot into the wall to intimidate Ivan. As a result, Ivan and his fiancée left the city. After the search of his apartment, Ivan, along with his fiancée, returned to Dallas. The police arrested them and told them that Ivan was suspected of the double murder. A semi-automatic .380 caliber pistol was found in one of the rooms at Ivan's cousin's house. Ivan always had a weapon when he stayed there. Ivan continued to insist that he wasn't the killer, claiming it was a person from the criminal world to whom he owed money. Ivan maintained that this person was framing him by killing his relatives and leaving him alive. However, police didn't believe him, and ballistic tests showed that the bullets found in the victims' bodies matched those fired from Ivan's gun. The police also found an expensive watch at Ivan's place, identical to one that had been missing from the fiancée, Amy. Ivan allegedly gave it to her after the murders, along with an expensive diamond ring, the same one that had been missing from the deceased woman. Ivan's fiancée, Amy, confirmed that Ivan confessed to the murders on the same night it happened. She said he described how he shot the victims, stating that he had gone to Dallas to take revenge on James and allegedly stole money and goods from him. In November 2000, the police arrested Ivan and he was charged with double homicide. Despite the lack of a defense, Ivan continued to maintain his innocence throughout the trial, even appealing for a reinvestigation of the DNA and other evidence. As the years passed, Ivan's mother, Sylvia, kept fighting for his innocence. In 2019, a television producer, Matt Duff, became involved in the case after creating a series about controversial death penalties. Duff believed that Ivan had been wrongfully convicted and decided to investigate further. He obtained a private detective license to gather more evidence and re-interview witnesses. After months of investigation, it became clear that crucial pieces of evidence had been overlooked, and that Ivan had not been at the scene of the crime. DNA evidence and witness testimonies seemed to contradict the original conclusions. Despite these findings, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals denied the motion for a new trial, and Ivan's death sentence remained in place. In 2024, after nearly 2 decades on death row, Ivan's execution was scheduled for February 28th. Despite public protests and campaigns from activists, including celebrities like Kim Kardashian and Martin Sheen, the execution proceeded. On the day of his death, Ivan maintained his innocence, telling the families of the victims that he couldn't have killed them. Ivan was executed by lethal injection at the age of 50. His mother and supporters continued to fight for justice, but all their efforts were in vain. Ivan's case is considered one of the most controversial executions in Texas in recent years. Thank you for watching.